Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Peter Davis, managing partner of Interplay. I'm on a mission to help entrepreneurs advance society, and this podcast is definitively part of that effort. All right, today we've got Mike Rogers, my partner, back on. We're going to catch up a little bit on Apple's new tech release. I don't know if you guys know this, but every year they do a big show. There were some really interesting things that came out this year. I think it's common for people to poo-poo their innovations a little bit because they've gotten so far ahead. I think it's easier to be a hater. But there was some things that are of note and significance. We take a dip into growth round pay-to-play dynamics happening in the early stage market and catch up on a few other things. Now, I want to note before we jump in, this is the last episode we'll be doing before our summer break. So check it out. And I think wherever you listen to us, we'll pop up and we're back in business. Enjoy. Yeah, today I had a couple of topics for us.
Fun.
A little recap on the latest Apple keynote drop, which I don't think most mere mortals actually watch. But the dorkiest of us, myself included, watch it. Same day. Excitedly, a little kid. So there's some comments on that.
They've been pretty anticlimactic lately.
You know, I think that's the in thing to say. I think kind of no matter what progress they make, everyone kind of meh.
I mean, the most innovative thing they've done in a while is the AirPods.
Yeah, but
which are awesome. Don't get me wrong, but
the software integrations, all the layers, it's so beautifully done. How do you not?
Yeah, it's beautiful, but is it useful?
All right, well, let me frame it up a little bit. So if you didn't watch the Apple keynote, it's where they take the world through what's coming out in the fall. Mm-hmm. So these are features not available yet. It's usually an hour or two. It's very nicely produced. And their big newsworthy drop this time was Apple Intelligence, which is very cleverly AI as an acronym. I think what was most important about that, it's going to roll out through all of their apps, and increasingly over time, there'll be stuff that shows up in the fall, is particularly for the creating new imagery. What I think they've done, which I think transcends a little bit the Apple environment, is they have defined a format for how to intuitively prompt AI to make new images. And so if you watch the video, there are essentially a centralized circle, and then there's kind of 4 plus signs, maybe I'm misremembering, around it. And you can add in different ingredients. And that's essentially a visual human version of prompting, which right now prompting is kind of like a computer coding skill feeling, which really isn't aligned for most people. So I think that was actually maybe a subtlety of the presentation, but will probably be a format that other companies copy. And it might become just the way people interact with generative images for AI.
Right.
Maybe even video. So that was my first thing I took away as like pretty significant feature concept.
Using the text box and a prompt like
the way it was laid out. Like they didn't even spend any time, they talked about, hey, they're integrating AI and you saw it being used. Mm-hmm. But the cleverness of their product team in making it that simple and intuitive, I think that was actually a big innovation.
Yeah.
Just from a UX perspective.
And is your feeling that going forward, this will sort of set the standard for AI in our lives going forward? Is just going to be incorporated into the way we traditionally do things?
I mean, this is what's been missing in AI, right? Everything AI to date, it's not problematic. This is just a natural evolution, has been infrastructure, the behind the scenes layer that non-engineers are never going to touch, right? They're not even going to know about. They just want something to work and be easy. And this is one of the breakthrough moments where Apple, famously the leader in thinking about product design and human experience, has taken that software behind the scenes gritty layer and made it really simple art.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the big release was. That they simplified so many things and integrated it in a way where it doesn't need an instruction manual. And that's the genius of their products.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, I think a lot of this is like, we'll see. And I hate to be that guy in the conversation, but none of this is live yet. So the demos look great. I agree with you. It looks super cool. I think people will start using AI as we've come to see it be sort of known and shown day to day with this without even thinking about it, which is when, to your point, what Apple's done and where these things start becoming ubiquitous and where we start seeing real step change in function. And it's really exciting. And I think it's cool to see Apple, who traditionally is the laggard, right? They're often not the first mover. They let someone else come in and do it, see how it shakes, and then figure out how to make it the best version of it. And I agree, after watching what they did this week, it felt like the first time for me in a long time where I was like, oh, Apple's sort of doing something again. Now, some people are knocking them because most of this is being done on OpenAI's ChatGPT LLM. Apple did not build their own LLM for this. Who knows why or how or what or where this goes in the future. I actually don't judge them for that. I think it's probably part of their similar methodology, which is let's like let it go and shake and maybe not go spend billions of dollars building our own LLM right now. We'll let someone else power it. And if we want to switch, we switch. And again, they're not paying OpenAI, and they've mentioned that it's an open contract and they can work with whoever they want.
It's a 2-hour keynote, but if you rewind and watch just the 15 seconds where they say this is powered by OpenAI, they add a sentence after it saying, and we will be adding other LLMs in the future. So who knows if there's an Apple one? Maybe they're going to wait till the cost of an LLM goes from 10 billion to create down to 10 million.
Yeah.
And then they're going to roll out their own. It doesn't matter. They've always specialized at taking, in a way, I would say very few of their technologies are novel. I mean, I guess like some of the experiences like the AirPods and all that, they have, I'm sure, hardware components that are very novel. But a lot of it's existing software that they have done an incredible job of repurposing into a product that is simple and integrated.
Yeah. And works well.
And works well. And that's the story here, I think, once again.
Yeah.
And that's a moat. That's a moat. People have trouble making things easy.
Totally. And it's a moat, and they've already built the moat around the iPhone, right? So now they've got you on the iPhone. And I think the big question here is like, I don't know, you probably update your iPhone every year still because you're, a technologist and you love this stuff. But most people are not updating their iPhone every year anymore, right? And most people aren't even doing it every 2 years anymore because the step changes in the phones are not that great.
Okay, fair.
But now, if you told me, hey, Mike, this new phone has a more powerful AI feature built in, or it has its own model built into it, or it has the right chip you need to do this, then I'm incentivized to update my phone because I want to be on the leading edge of AI. Before, I don't need the new camera. My pictures are good enough.
Well, I think we kind of got far enough up the innovation curve on most of those feature sets.
Yeah.
But I don't remember exactly which number, but I think if you're below an iPhone 14,
I think it's 15, it's the M1 chip.
You won't even have the AI features.
You can't do it.
So I think this is going to be an upgrade wave, but like all curves, 10 years from now, the crappy old chip will probably run AI seamlessly, but who knows?
Yeah, exactly. But it does, to the point, bring it back to like why this I think is important for people listening to this. It's like, I think we are now entering a new cycle where having the best technology again is important.
Yep.
For the last 5 years,
it's like a step function moment.
It has not been important to have the newest iPhone.
Yep.
And there was a point, if you remember back to the iPhone 4, 5, you had to have the newest one. Otherwise, you weren't even close to what the new phones were having. And I think we're back to that moment now where I hope at least I'm like, oh, I got to go get this new phone.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple other features that they're rolling out that are features, but I think are pretty significant from a quality of life perspective. These are beyond first world benefits, but like, the stuff that I'm like nerding out on all the time.
Okay. It's not quality of life. It's things that you wanted them to build.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Photo search. We all have 10 gabillion photos now. It's impossible to find anything.
Yeah.
AI is going to go through, index, contextualize all of the images. So you'll just be able to speak and the right photos show up. That is a huge problem. I would say particularly for parents, there's a new photo paradigm. Like I think there's 9 photos of me under the age of 12.
Yeah.
There's 9,000 of each of my kids.
Totally.
And it's just a different animal when you want to pull up the right thing at the right time. You can't do it.
Oh, I think we talk about this constantly. I have a lot of friends having kids now, and I'm sure your kids were right at the beginning of this iPhone era too, where every day of their life is captured. And even for me, we're not too far off in age, but again, for baby pictures, for me, you have to go find the book in my parents' basement and see the pictures.
Yeah.
your kids all the picture every day of their life
Totally.
forever. And that is an immense amount of data. And to your point, right now, everyone's got 10,000 pictures. They're useless.
They're useless. There's so many that they've basically been devalued.
They're worthless.
Yeah.
So,
but this maybe will,
no, I agree.
Find the best ones at the right time, thread them.
Exactly to your point. Like,
and even if their first version isn't perfect, there's a light at the end of the tunnel that there's going to be a surfacing mechanism for good content.
For sure. Library. And think about what you can do with this content now that you have LLMs to power it. I'll give you one hypothetical example. Hey, Siri, make a movie about my life.
Yep.
Boom. While your Siri's going off as I'm talking. Perfect. And don't make a movie about Mark's life. No one wants to watch that. But my point is, you literally can say, make a movie about my life. And hopefully, my point is, we'll get to a point where Siri can go through your phone and create a narrative that looks like a Hollywood movie. That is you from zero. And you could even be talking to yourself. Using AI generation.
I think that's actually a version of that's coming out in the fall.
Yeah.
In this first release.
How cool does that sound?
Other small features that I think are pretty cool. Most people may not care about this, but I'm excited about it. The iPod Pros, you'll be able to use a nod motion now to accept or reject calls, which, particularly if you're in New York, you're on subways, you're in elevators, when you're talking to it's just another weird interaction that came out of technology that we can kind of wipe away. You can schedule iMessages. And then my perpetual question every time there's a big release, every time I watch this every year, I get off and I'm like, wait, is Chrome awesome now? Or sorry, is Safari awesome now? And I love the idea of being fully contained in an Apple ecosystem for a lot of the things that they do well, because there are some overlapping synergies. I got off Spotify, I'm on Apple Music for this reason. It kind of integrates with Siri nicely. I assume there'll be more benefits over time. But I keep having this moment where I'm still using Chrome because everyone smart and technical says that's the safest, fastest product out there.
Well, you also use G Suite for business.
Totally.
Yeah.
So there's just a question of, and their mail product looked pretty good. So there's a question always of like, are they finally at advanced functionality parity? Their products are always lovely, but we're power users. And we want features that, not everyone needs.
Yeah.
And Apple notoriously kind of doesn't put those in because they're playing to the masses. They're playing to the volume. So I had that moment again of like, hey, is it worth a revisit? They've got nice little AI integrations in mail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're building features that you see multi-billion-dollar businesses built on, right? They have a Grammarly feature now where they're going to go in and edit your mail for you, which is great for someone like me who doesn't know how to use the English language.
What language?
Yeah. English, exactly. I gave up on it in 8th grade. And you know why I gave up on it? Because I knew this was coming.
Fair.
Yeah, I felt it. Yeah. I was like, you're not going to need this. Someone will do this for you.
Right.
And now they do.
And it worked out.
Yeah, worked out.
You played the trade.
So I think this is a bigger question, which is really, where do the LLMs and sort of the kind of like core tech infrastructure players like Apple, like OpenAI now, like Google, like Microsoft, where do they stop building product in this transition? And where is the app store layer of the AI revolution? And I think this is really important because we're seeing tons of pitches right now from entrepreneurs building companies. And some of them I look at and I'm like, this is a cool business. But like, we just saw OpenAI launch a tutor assistant in their LLM with like no new application, no payment, no nothing, right? Like all of a sudden they're competing with all the tutoring platforms out there. Apple just announced a Grammarly killer. Not killer, Grammarly will still have a business, don't get me wrong, but like a free Grammarly feature if you use Apple. So we're entering a new paradigm shift where before it was very, very clear. Apple built the phone, they built Apple OS system, and then they had an app store layer, and everything below that, they said, developers and companies, you go build. We got Airbnb, we got Uber, we got Pinterest, we got eBay, whatever, XYZ, all sitting on these platforms, scale to big businesses. With the LLM model, I don't know where it ends and where it's safe for people to start building companies. And I think that's the most interesting part of this next revolution.
And as you know, this has been a big conversation topic on our investing side, especially at the early stage.
Yeah.
Companies come out and they're AI enhanced in some way or another. And they've got application layer functionality. They're leveraging the LLMs, and we don't know what that they've built will be commoditized by the large LLMs and what will be kind of moat technology. It's it's blurry right now. I would posit one interesting thing about Apple getting in the game is this is the first real migration by a major company to ubiquitous integration of the AI LLM kind of across the app stack. And I'm sure it'll get a lot better and a lot more stuff will come in the coming years. But maybe by Apple doing that, they are helping to draw the line. Because if they're partnered with OpenAI, well, OpenAI now has to think, okay, if we build that feature that Apple just made into our thing, how does that affect the relationship? And I don't know how much they care.
Yeah.
But there is now a counterparty in determining where the line is between infrastructure and application layer, whereas there was kind of no counterparty before.
I think there's that's a great point. I think there's a counterparty and there's potentially a counterparty between the mega companies because they're so big, they're going to jockey for position in this market. There is no counterpoint between a $5 million Series A startup.
Totally.
And these big companies where there was before.
Totally.
Apple was not building Uber. Google was not building Uber, right, on top of their phones.
But Tesla's building Uber on the side.
Yeah. Sure, but by the way, that's exactly the point, right? Like now Tesla will have their own LLM, and whereas before they might have said, "Great, we'll build the platform, and developer, you go build the infrastructure for our Tesla cars." They're going to own the whole thing, and maybe that's not a perfect example because Elon sort of always has his own rules. But I think to think about like how do you build the next generation's Uber, not knowing where Apple will stop, Microsoft will stop, OpenAI will stop, is pretty hard.
It's hard. I think people got to go for it.
Yeah.
But it just may turn out in a lot of cases that what's currently moat technology doesn't remain a moat. It doesn't remain a barrier. It just becomes a feature that everyone has access to.
Totally.
And then you got to move fast and, it's a blitzkrieg situation.
Right. And I saw a company this week that was super interesting, right? Like application layer AI business that was trying to build the personal assistant on your phone. So it integrates with, and I'll keep names out of this, but it'll integrate into all of your applications across the phone and pull out the data. And then you have your own searchable LLM based upon your text message conversations, your pictures, everything you have there. Apple didn't exactly say they're going to do that in this update, but they're hinting around that, right? And the ability to get there. And it feels pretty clear to me that they're going to get there. So it's exactly the point. Does this end up being a third-party company? Or does it just get built within the existing ecosystems?
Yeah, I mean, that is a whole dimension of early stage investing right now. Just figuring out how the landscape has any shot of settling out.
Yeah.
Usually when you're betting, you kind of know what the landscape looks like. But right now, the ground is moving beneath everyone's feet.
Totally. And the dollar amounts are so big, right? It's like you can't do these things that cheaply yet. So to put huge dollars behind building another LLM or building an application layer company around it, it's tough.
So we're pretty far since this last tech bubble popped. The market, talking to Chris, has kind of, approaching a version of a soft landing. Who knows if they'll stick to landing or what's happening.
Yeah.
But usually there's like a little bit of a wick and fuse situation whenever the market pops, because most companies who just raised right before the market imploded, they usually have 18 to 24 months of capital.
Yeah.
And so you have this period where at different times, companies are basically coming back up for air. They need capital. And it's a mess. And they're kind of right every 3 to 4 months. It's a totally different, gambit for what they're going to have to deal with. We're seeing a lot of pay to plays right now, right? Internally, we're seeing companies come back. They're a little bit different than what we were seeing maybe a year ago. Right. A year ago, we quickly saw the growth stage companies realizing that whole market was kind of going sideways. And there was a lot of restructuring going on. People got way ahead of it. We're starting to see now companies that had just raised that are a little bit earlier stage or in different markets that might have a harder time garnering capital in a traditional environment. They were in the more edge case scenarios. And we're seeing the pay to play model keep coming back up. How do you think about pay to plays generally?
Yeah. So let me add just like one layer of context to that. I think is helpful for folks. Where we are now is I think you're seeing a bifurcation of cap table support for later stage businesses, even some smaller, even some not that late stage businesses, could be Series A's that are just like not quite found product market fit that usually would have been able to raise a few more bucks, but now people are like, I'm not putting more money in here. You certainly are seeing this at the growth stage, Series B, C, et cetera. But I think what you're seeing is either large mark-to-market increases in valuation that are not sustainable. The business is not worth that anymore. And people in the cap table who are no longer in a position to support those businesses. And typically what that looks like is the fund they invested out of that business is fully called now. So they don't have capital to put money in. And if you look around the table and you say, hey, the business needs 10 million bucks or it's going to be a zero, and people are like, I can't step up and put cash in, then you have to look around and say, great, well, if you can't support the business here and it would be a zero anyway, then we need to put in draconian measures to either force you to participate or to rebuild the cap table, recapitalize the company in a way that allows people who are going to step up and fund the business to have upside in the deal. Because the new money in shouldn't be responsible for protecting the old money in forever. And I think that's sort of the dynamic that's happening in the market right now. And it's an important one because for these founders who are thinking about this, I think you really have to be open to the idea of like, hey, a recap might not be the worst thing in the world. It might allow you to clean up the cap table, get dead money off of it, reposition the business for growth and an exit that's actually sustainable, and also reward employees who are sticking around with new option grants at a lower valuation so that they can be back into the money on these call options. And net, I think a lot of people hear about this pay to play or a recap of these rounds. They think this is the end, we're done. I actually don't think that's necessarily true for some businesses. For some, for sure, you're just picking at the bottom, praying, and those are not good deals to do. But for others, like there's a way to like make this business work if the cap table gets realigned with the expectations of the business.
Yeah, and I think we should pause for a second and kind of describe a pay to play.
Yeah,
just for the non-investory types who are listening to this. But before we do, I wanted to offer one kind of mechanical thing that I think is super interesting. When we read about bankruptcies or any type of situation where there's a restructuring, whether it's a big airline or whatever, I think the consumer interpretation of that broadly is that the company's going to go under and operations are going to cease.
Mm-hmm.
And the big aha takeaway, and the light bulb went off for me however many years ago, was that the operation usually continues, but the ownership changes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily hurt the employees. It can, or it might be better or worse for them. The outcomes can be different. The management team gets treated a certain way that might be different than the owners. But when you see these recapitalizations, it doesn't mean that, you know, airline X is going away and everyone's going to lose their job because it's bankrupt. What it means is that people who had invested in it before are probably going to lose all their money.
Right.
Right. The investors are screwed. There might be new investors who come in and they might get a completely different set of deals and terms.
Yep.
And these pay to play deals are essentially the private market early stage version of like a kind of a internally mutually agreed upon bankruptcy.
Yeah.
It's more or less what it is.
Totally. It's a recapitalization, right? It's saying, hey, the way we were doing this before and the way we set up the company economically isn't going to work. So we need to figure out a way to fix this or there's no business. And if there's
or
no
it's dead. It's worth zero standalone because
exactly.
The system is not going to support itself.
Exactly. So that's well said. And so the pay to play feature is one that probably not everyone's come across in their career, but what it basically says is either you participate in the round or there's going to be some consequence. That consequence can be varied. It could be anything from your preferred converting to common. It could be completely wiping out your equity in the business. It could be diluting you down to, pennies in the dollar. There's a million and one ways to structure these things, but the general concept is either you step up to support the business or you step out. And that also means generally, if you have a board seat and you don't support it, you lose your board seat. So we restructure governance too, in order to put the company in a position to have people on the cap table and on the board seats that can drive growth forward.
Is there, are there basic terms that, the pay to play is very bespoke, right? Mm-hmm. Venture deals, seed A, B, I don't know. There's 10 deal terms. There's 3 toggles on each.
Yeah.
Every law firm out there is a template.
It's vanilla.
It's vanilla,
yeah.
Right? It's more, is the investment a good one to be in? And then is everyone being reasonable? And you can tell that pretty quickly. These are bespoke. These are fixer-uppers. Who wants to help? What does it take? There's kind of all bets are off. Are there terms that are standardized though, or things that people look for in a pay-to-play that?
Yeah. the short answer is no, but yes. So the yes I'll say is the standard is either you participate or there's severe consequences.
Right.
So if you see pay to play and you don't participate, it's because it will mean a significant impairment to the value of your investment. So that's the most vanilla part of it, to sort of take your term. Outside of that, how that's done and in what mechanism sort of varies. Again, you can keep your preferred but be diluted. You could get converted to common, which is very, very common in these situations. You could,
which may not be the worst thing, by the way. But yeah, these are, you have to, when I hear you say the severe consequences, I think it's important to flag that they have huge variances.
Huge variances for sure. There are much more draconian versions of this. There are much less draconian versions of this. But to be clear, in all of them, if you're not participating, it's generally a large impairment to the value of your current investment.
Yep. All right. It was a good sesh. I want to throw in one product shout. For Father's Day, I got a couple of great gifts from my family.
Oh, yeah.
They nailed it. Highlights include socks with separated toes, which apparently improve foot posture, health.
I've been toe spacing for years.
I didn't even know that was a word.
Yeah.
And then, one of the ones I got that I was kind of struck by is Philips, which is a consumer products company. And I feel like the brand doesn't do justice to the products, because when I hear the Philips brand, I don't jump out of my seat the way I think like an Apple brand or a Tesla brand.
Well, we know you love Apple.
Right. But when I opened the Philips box, I got the product was called the Somnio, which is to create a natural light wake up to get your melatonin going. And I'm one night in, and it is a beautiful fixture in the room. It actually is gorgeous to look at. It looks like it's from a space age movie.
Cool.
And it was incredible. So just wanted to give them a shout.
Cool.
Their brand cred should go up. And
I agree.
People should check out the Somnio.
I've been a Philips Hue light bulb customer for a long time now, and they've actually done a great job continuing to innovate on that product set. And they actually have that feature built into the lights too. So I can set my lights to go on as a wake up slow light in my bedroom in the morning.
Do you do that? Is that standard?
I don't do that, but I typically I'm not any form of alarm guy. I wake up naturally pretty much at the exact same time every day. And if there's about a 30-minute variance depending on how tired I am.
Do you have shades open?
No, dark.
Dark. Yeah. Cause we have blackout vibes.
I don't have blackout. It's New York City. I don't really have,
there's always a way.
As close as I can be to blackout. Right. Yeah.
But then you do blackout vibes. And then if you're a health nut, you're reading about sleep, you need to get sunlight to have the melatonin go.
Totally.
And it doesn't work. You have to fabricate the whole thing. So you need a combo of blue light blocker shades when the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Blackout room, and then fake sunlight.
Fake sunlight to rise you up.
Kind of
it sounds like you've biohacked.
I'm working on it.
Why do you need the blackout shades in the burbs?
There's a fair bit of ambient light.
Interesting.
And I can't remember which book it was recently that we read, but they were talking about how brain function actually is affected by even a small amount of light.
Yeah.
While you're sleeping. All right.
You got to talk to your neighbors about their ambient lights.
Yeah, well.
Cool.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Take care.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Quick reminder, summer break's coming up, so we'll see you on the other side of that. Have a good one.